each one of us sitting here this morning is enjoying something that there are other people in the world that don't know that they should be enjoying. And that's the assurance that we are unconditionally forgiven by God.
Amen.
Some of us might be sitting here this morning and feeling a little bit self-righteous in our knowledge that we are forgiven. Maybe some of us this morning even understand the general concept that just as we are forgiven people, we should be a forgiving people. It's a lot easier to be forgiven than forgiving, isn't it? I think most of us, if we were asked the question, we come right out and say, yes, forgiveness is a good thing. I believe in forgiveness. But when we actually get in a situation where forgiveness is called for, when we get in that situation where our heart's been stomped on, our emotions have been ripped to shreds, we need a little extra encouragement. When we're in that place where we need to be offering forgiveness, we need the presence of the Holy Spirit to work in our lives. Because our humanity can very easily take over. And forgiveness is no longer that important, is it? When we're in those hard situations where forgiveness is just unnatural, why should we forgive? Why should we forgive? And on top of that, why is it so doggone hard to forgive someone? Why is forgiveness hard? One author tells us in his book called Forgive and Forget that forgiveness is actually very much like grief. There are stages, and everyone goes through the stages of forgiveness just as they do for grief, at their own time and at their own pace. We all go through it in different ways. But nonetheless, he lists 3 stages of forgiveness. First we hurt, and then we hate, and then we heal. The process sounds very simple, doesn't it? It's just a 3-word sermon title, isn't it? Hurt, hate, heal. Very simple. But you know, it always happens inside the storm of very complex emotions. You know, it's not just black and white. There's all kinds of things going on around us that influence how we look at those 3 words. And particularly if that wound is deep, when someone has really hurt you deeply. You know, if it's an acquaintance who says something and you just kind of pass it off, that's one thing. But when someone you know and you love and you trust hurts you deeply, then it's very difficult to find ourselves in a place of forgiveness. Forgiveness may be the hardest work that you and I will ever do. Experience as a pastor, but more so as a person. I find that the biggest stumbling block to forgiveness is not knowing how to forgive, but a willingness to forgive. We feel like we're giving up something of ourselves. We say, I forgive. gospel lesson from Matthew today illustrates the why we should forgive. And after I read that, I'd like to talk about how. I think that's something our churches are very lax in teaching us. They tell us we're supposed to forgive, but they don't tell us how to do it. So listen to the words from Matthew 18. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? 7 times? How magnanimous Peter is. No, not 7 times, Jesus says, but 70 times 7. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven can be compared to a king who decided to bring his accounts up to date with the servants who had borrowed money from him. In the process, one of his debtors was brought in who owed him millions of dollars. He couldn't pay, so his master ordered that he be sold along with his wife, his children, and everything that he owned to pay the debt. But the man fell down before his master and begged him, Please be patient with me and I will pay it all. Then his master was filled with pity for him, and he released him, and he forgave his debt. But the man left the king, and he went to a fellow servant who owed him only a few $1,000s. He grabbed the man by the throat and he demanded instant payment. His fellow servant fell down before him and he begged for a little more time. Be patient with me and I will pay you back. But his creditor wouldn't wait. He had the man arrested and put in prison until the debt could be paid in full. When some of the other servants saw this, they were very upset. They went to the king and they told him everything that had happened. And the king called the man in that he had forgiven and he said, You evil servant, I forgave you that tremendous debt because you pleaded with me. I had mercy on you. Shouldn't you have mercy on your fellow servant just as I had mercy on you? Then the angry king sent the man to prison to be tortured until he had paid his entire debt. And Jesus said, That's what my heavenly Father will do to you if you refuse to forgive your brothers and sisters from your heart. So with that passage in mind, this morning let's look at those 3 stages of forgiveness and see if we can find some common ground as we move through them. The starting point of any process in forgiveness is acknowledging that we have been hurt. We have to acknowledge that we have been hurt. We can't shrug off what's happened to us. We can't pretend that we're not hurting if we're ever going to forgive. We need to allow ourselves to feel the depth of the injury that has been dealt to us. We can't minimize it. We can't sweep it under the rug. We can't pretend it didn't happen. That's a defense mechanism that we all have. We like to pretend that what he said really didn't hurt our feelings. We like to pretend that what she did to us really didn't matter. It didn't affect me. When deep in our hearts we know that's not true. We like to focus on ourselves, so much so that we like to think the others have not got the ability to affect us in such a significant way. But until we're willing to admit that we have been hurt, we're not in a place to begin the process of forgiveness.